Hello everyone. Today we're talking about the modern Middle East, a region often in the news for war, terrorism, weak governments, and constant unrest. But how did it get this way? Many of the problems we see today in places like Israel, Palestine, Iraq, Syria, and Iran go back over 100 years to the First World War and the way new borders were drawn afterward. When World War I started in 1914, the Middle East looked very different. Back then, most of it was part of the Ottoman Empire, which had ruled the region for centuries. Britain controlled Egypt and parts of the Gulf, and what is now Iran was weak and partly influenced by Britain and Russia. When the war ended in 1918, the Ottoman Empire was gone. In its place were new countries, but these new borders were drawn far away by politicians in Europe. Local people were caught in the middle, living under new governments and foreign ideas like nationalism and Zionism. Some people hoped this would bring freedom. Others were afraid of what was coming next. Even before the war, the Middle East was very important to big powers like Britain, Germany, Russia, and France. They wanted to protect their trade routes, influence, and religious communities. The war and secret deals. The Ottoman Empire feared being surrounded by Russia, Britain, and France, so they joined Germany and the Central Powers in the war. For 4 long years there was fighting, famine, and the Armenian genocide. Both sides tried to break each other's empires. Germany and the Ottomans called on Muslims under British and French rule to rebel, while the Allies supported Christian minorities and Arab nationalists under Ottoman rule. Meanwhile, the big powers made secret promises to each other about how they would divide the region if they won. They didn't worry too much about the contradictions. They thought they could sort things out later. One of these deals was with the Hashemite family, rulers of the Hejaz area, part of today's Saudi Arabia. The Sharif of Mecca, Hussein ibn Ali, agreed to lead Arab tribes in a revolt against the Ottomans, hoping to win an independent Arab kingdom. The British supported him because it served their goals, and they said they were helping Arabs gain freedom. From 1916 to 1918, this Arab revolt, with help from the famous T.E. Lawrence of Arabia, attacked Ottoman forces. But the British secretly planned to share the area with France. In 1916, the British and French made the Sykes-Picot Agreement, splitting the region into French and British zones of control. At the same time, Britain made another promise, this time to the Zionist movement. Many Jews dreamed of creating a homeland in Palestine, their ancient home. By 1917, Britain supported this idea, hoping to win support from Jews around the world. So they issued the Balfour Declaration, saying they favored a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine. But this was vague and did not clearly say what would happen to the Arab majority living there. In 1917, the United States joined the war. In January 1918, President Woodrow Wilson announced his 14 points for peace, including the idea that each nation should decide its own future. But in the Middle East, most people still identified more with religion, tribe, or region than with a nation. Still, many Arabs, Jews, Kurds, and others now expected they would get their own states. This created huge expectations that were very hard to meet. After the war, when the fighting ended in November 1918, British and French troops occupied the old Ottoman provinces. Nationalist leaders traveled to the Paris Peace Conference to ask for independence. Some, like the Lebanese patriarch, got support from France, but most came home with empty promises. The League of Nations, created by the peace treaty, gave Britain and France mandates to govern these lands until they were ready for self-rule. In reality, this was just a new kind of colonial control. France got Syria and Lebanon. Britain got Mesopotamia, Iraq, Transjordan, and Palestine. Local people had to follow foreign rules but had little real power. Local resistance and unrest. Local people were not happy. In Egypt, there was a failed revolution in 1919. In Turkey, nationalists led by Mustafa Kemal, Atatürk, fought back and created modern Turkey, ending the Ottoman Empire. In Persia, Iran, Britain helped Reza Pahlavi take power in 1921 to block Russian influence and control oil. Even though Britain still had a lot of power, the new kingdoms in the Middle East got more freedom than Britain had planned, mainly because of the Iraqi revolt. But true independence would still have to wait. In Syria and Lebanon, the French split the region into 5 smaller states, which they controlled for many years. They also created Greater Lebanon by adding mostly Muslim areas to the mainly Christian Mount Lebanon. This created a new mix of communities that did not always get along peacefully. So World War I swept away centuries of Ottoman rule and shaped a new Middle East. On paper, these new countries were meant to become independent under the League of Nations. But in reality, Britain and France still made the key decisions. This led to clashes between different religious and ethnic groups, and also uprisings against foreign rulers. In Palestine, there was uncertainty about the Zionist movement. Would it lead to a Jewish state, endless tension, or perhaps both? The roots of the Middle East conflicts were planted after the First World War, but things got even more complicated during the Cold War, when superpowers got involved and several wars were fought in the region. Meanwhile, Israel was secretly working to build nuclear weapons, just like the United States and the Soviet Union did during and after World War II. The Soviets also expanded their nuclear program, building many reactors to fuel what they called nuclear communism, a dream of limitless energy. Entire cities were built for this new atomic generation. You might know one of these places, Pripyat. The story of the Middle East shows how one war can reshape the world for generations. And sometimes the seeds of future conflicts are planted before the battles are even over. You can find all the sources for this episode in the description below. I'm Thomas, and this is Memory Lane, where we explore the stories that history never forgets.